Thanks for hopping on with me. 5 straight years now, we've got a team, obviously in the state finals. Could be 6 if it weren't for the good old coronavirus there back in 2020. But I tell you what, I'm happy to be wrong at the start of the year. I wasn't sure if we were going to see anyone down at Gamebridge Fieldhouse this year, but here we are. Central Noble's down there for the first time.
Yeah, and it's a really fascinating day that's going to come up at the state finals, considering you have 6 of the 8 teams competing down there that are there at the state championship for the first time ever. And 2 of those match up in Class 2A in Providence and Central Noble. So when we talk about, the same teams and the same, that's not the case this Saturday. And it's always kind of nice when these programs, these schools can celebrate something that they've never done before.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously we've seen a couple of firsts now here for Central Noble, especially for the senior class. They win their first sectional as a group, those 5 seniors with Connor Esizian, Ryan Schroeder, Logan Gardner especially. They finally get that first sectional out of the way. Then they get their first regional, the first one there since 2001. And then finally that first ever semi-state too. Just what's this team doing well right now? How do you like how this team is playing?
Absolutely firing on all cylinders and playing great basketball on both ends of the floor. We looked at, I think the most impressive win all season was that win over Blackhawk Christian in the regional, because I think, a lot of people felt that as good as Connor Esizian is, the balance that Blackhawk Christian has, the experience they have in terms of playing up, playing a lot of SAC teams, playing a lot of high-profile teams around the state throughout the year, that was going to be the difference. And Central Noble was able to handle that. Logan Gardner was huge. I think he's really the unsung hero for this state run for them, because we knew how good he was, but the fact that he's been a borderline dominant inside presence for this team in the latter half of the year, latter portion of the year has been huge. And the guys stepping up around Connor Esizian has been the key. As good as Esizian has been, Central Noble's not in the state championship without the guys around him. They've really stepped up at the right time.
Yeah, and you mentioned Logan Gardner there, especially. That's a guy that, for the last few years, to I guess put it plain and simple, kind of got beat up by guys like Landon Jordan and some of those bigger guys there in the NECC. What kind of growth have you seen him make over the last couple of years? Because obviously, like you said, we've seen the season. We know what he does. But what kind of growth have you seen guys like Logan Gardner especially make over the last couple of years that's helped them make this run?
Well, it's a mindset thing when you're that big, and you can attest to it, Prince. Being on the football field it doesn't matter how big you are if you're not physical. And I think Logan Gardner had to buy into that and really come into his own. As a senior, is like, look, you're as big as you are, but you cannot be as dominant if you're not committed to it physically, and you can handle that physicality and the pushing around and the contact inside. So I think Logan Gardner got to a point where he embraced it and he accepted the challenges that are going to come in the post, playing against some big time teams. And I think that's been a difference more than anything, has been just the mental aspect of handling that role for Logan Gardner.
Yeah, and then on top of that, obviously talking about Connor Esizian, just what we've seen him do through this playoff run. Obviously, we know what he did through sectionals, but regionals really, started to ramp things up for him. He puts up 47 in the early game, goes scoreless in the first quarter in that game against Blackhawk Christian, still puts up 30, and then comes back and puts up, I believe, 26 it was last weekend. Just talk about the run that this kid's been on and the kind of will that you're seeing to want to go out there and just win for Connor.
Well, I think it's great because, other areas of the state are now seeing what we've seen for the better part of the last couple of years with Connor Esizian. Is the kid is a scoring machine. He can create. He's as pure of a shooter as you'll see in this area. If we're talking him and Fletcher Lawyer, it's 1A and 1B between those guys in terms of shooting prowess. And it's admirable to see, because he's not committed to an in-state program. He's at a 2A Central Noble team that didn't have a lot of high-profile games in terms of marquee games from around the state this year. So in a lot of ways, a lot of portions of the state are seeing Connor Esizian for the first time and realizing just how good he is. So is it probably too little too late for a Mr. Basketball honor? Probably. But definitely he's opening some eyes around the state, and what better way to end his career is doing it on the big stage at Bankers Life down in Indy.
Yeah, sticking with the season topic, obviously you kind of mentioned it there, but the Mr. Basketball Award, obviously it's an award that I think for a lot of people in this state, they've seen they expected a CJ Gunn, a Fletcher Lawyer, or a Braden Smith to come out here and win that award this year. Just how do you think this run that he's been on has kind of opened some eyes, and like you said, it might be a little too late, but do you think a run to a state title, if they win a state title, kind of like maybe what we saw with Caleb First last year, ultimately opens up a few eyes, maybe gets him a little bit closer to possibly winning that award?
I think it earns him a lot more votes than what he could have had, up to a couple weeks ago. I think Gunn is the clear favorite because you have a trifecta of things. He plays in a high class in Indianapolis, and so that's two. And the third is he's going to an in-state school, and you're finishing your career at state. So big school in Indy, staying in state, going to the state finals. That's the three things that here in 2022 I still think are the most important things when it comes to Mr. Basketball. And I think when you're in a lower class, I think you have to be so exceptionally above everybody else, like Caleb First was, to really win that award. And I don't think, regardless of what happens at state for Connor Essegian, that's going to put him over the top. Unless he goes out maybe and drops a 50 spot, maybe that opens up enough eyes. But Connor's, as much as he would love that award to be a part of what's going to happen at Central Noble and that community down at Bankers Life Fieldhouse this weekend, he's going to enjoy it, and he's going to be more than happy to share it with his teammates and his school, more so than an individual award like Mr. Basketball.
As I say, you mentioned the 50 piece. It's never out of the realm of possibility.
No, it's not. Absolutely.
If you've got Connor out there. Regardless, though, I think you almost have to pencil Connor in as a Indiana All-Star this year after dub last year, right?
Yes, absolutely. Bona fide Indiana All-Star, most definitely.
Looking ahead to the game itself, you mentioned there earlier, obviously Central Noble facing the Providence team that really the NECC has gotten quite familiar with over the last year or so. Eastside faced them in the baseball state finals. Westview got them in the soccer boys state finals. Now Central Noble gets them here in the state championship this Saturday. What do we know about Providence there, Justin?
Well, they're very good defensively. This is a team that doesn't give up a lot of points. And you look at the run that they've made through the postseason, and they're not giving up a lot of points, holding teams to the 30s and 40s throughout their run. And this is a team that doesn't put up a lot of points. They average just over 52 a game. They have just a single player averaging in double figures. And so this is a team that's going to want to keep things contained defensively and on the scoreboard if they're going to have a shot against Central Noble. I'm trying not to look at all the advantages that Central Noble has on paper and automatically just say this is going to be Central Noble's game running away. But I will say that when we look at these two teams and how they match up, it is really decidedly in Central Noble's favor, not just with Connor Essegian, but when you mention a pure big that can dominate like Logan Gardner and guys that can shoot like Schroeder and company on the perimeter. When you look at how this game could play out, it definitely could be the Cougars running away with it. It's just you want to kind of temper that enthusiasm because you never know what can happen on the big stage down in Indy, but you really have to like the matchup if you're the Cougs.
Yeah, and we talked to them earlier in the week, and they kind of mentioned the same thing, that they like to slow the pace down. They're very deliberate with what they like to do. Obviously, Central Noble's played all kinds of teams that like to do that, mainly East Side there up in the NECC and Coach Bentley's program that, likes to play in that same kind of a style. How do you think games and what the competition, especially this year that Central Noble has faced, ultimately helps prepare them for a team like Providence?
Well, when you look at it just in the postseason and you look at the teams that they have beaten, Eastside, Blackhawk Christian, and Carroll, those are all top 5, top 6 teams in the state in the final 2A poll at the end of the regular season. And they were able to beat all 3 of those. And you look at Providence's road, and other than beating Linton Stockton, you're looking at teams that probably aren't as good as the 3 teams that I mentioned that Central Noble had to beat. So in the end, it comes down to one game for sure. But the gauntlet that Central Noble has been able to go through and succeed I feel like Blackhawk Christian's a better team. than Providence. I think Eastside is a better team than Providence, and you could make the case that Carroll is. So Central Noble just needs to continue to do what they've been doing over the course of the last month or so, and they got a great shot. I feel like, you know, if anything, Providence maybe comes out. Do they zone Central Noble? Do they try to eliminate Logan Gardner or limit him, and then force Central Noble to beat them shooting the basketball? And I don't think that's a recipe for success. I think if you zone Central Noble, they're gonna bury you from the outside. If you man Central Noble, then they're gonna break you down, and Logan Gardner's gonna have a big day. I just, you know, defensively for Providence, a lot of things have to go right to be competitive in this one.
You mentioned obviously defense there for Providence. Defense for Central Noble has been big for them here throughout this run, especially last week. I know it looked like at times they just kind of suffocated Carroll out there. They didn't know what to do with their size, their athleticism. How key is the defensive side of the ball going to be for Central Noble this week? And number two, give me one other key for Central Noble going out there winning a state championship.
Well, defensively is going to be big. You know, we've seen instances, you know, here in this playoffs where, you know, Connor's been held scoreless, or the offense had trouble getting going early on, and the defense has been able to keep it close until that offense finds itself. And, you know, that could be a case on Saturday too, if Central Noble's off to a slow start. We know how unpredictable the shooting is at Bankers Life. Yeah, the teams get a shoot around during the week, and they have before the game. But it's really not a lot of time to adjust to the sight lines that are so much different at Bankers Life Fieldhouse. So, you know, could Central Noble come out and be 2 of their first 13 from the field? Absolutely. So I feel that defense is key until that offense gets going. It could be ramped up from the opening tip, or it could take a little bit. You know, the advantage for Central Noble is Providence does not put up a lot of points. This is not a team averaging 70 points a game, and if you fall behind early, you could be troubled. Providence is very deliberate in its offense. It's very, you know, in the half court, that's really where a lot of things happen for them. They're not going to try to run and gun you. And I feel like that plays into Central Noble's hands. It's not taking Central Noble into a realm that it's unfamiliar with or uncomfortable. If you had a team that was running and gunning, going up and down the floor, pushing the pace, that could cause trouble for Central Noble, but it's not. And we've seen them handle these types of teams in this run. Eastside, Blackhawk Christian, Carroll, they all fit that mold. So this is not that much of an adjustment for Central Noble to prepare for.
All right, it's that time of the questioning. Give me your prediction for tomorrow. Does Central Noble come away with their first state title and a third straight state title for the area in the lower classes?
I'm going to go, yes, they do. Central Noble 62-48.
Also, you're going to have them by double digits there too. It's you think it's one of those ones where it's maybe a little closer, a little early, and then they pull away in the second half, or do you think it's a pretty comfortable game throughout most of the way?
I think the first half, you know, maybe some fits and starts, maybe some closeness. I think Central Noble puts them away in the second half, and I preface this by saying guard against, looking at all the advantages for Central Noble. But if this team executes the way we've seen them, and John Bodie has them focused, which he has done all season, then Central Noble wins this game comfortably.
Fantastic. Our Prep Hoops prognosticator, Justin Kenny, appreciate you swinging on by. Looking forward to Bankers Life, Gamebridge Fieldhouse tomorrow, and hopefully another state championship for the area. Thanks, buddy.